The White House tonight furiously trying to stop the virus's spread, racing to identify a constellation of contacts who recently interacted with President Trump, the First Lady, or confidant Hope Hicks. The president's chief of staff with this acknowledgement.
I fully expect that as this virus continues to go on, other people in the White House will certainly have a positive test result.
The three traveling together aboard Air Force One Tuesday night with an entourage of aides, allies, and family members flying to the debate site in Cleveland. Inside that hall, most of the president's guests not wearing masks, ignoring a mandate from the event's co-host, the Cleveland Clinic, requiring all attendees to do so. A clinic doctor who approached several Trump guests to remind them about the mask policy was turned away. Those potentially exposed the Bidens and the former vice president's guests, who wore masks throughout the 90-minute event, even as the president mocked his rival.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
Among those on that trip testing negative for COVID today, Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and Rudy Giuliani. Back at the White House, the president's 14-year-old son, Barron, also testing negative. Still, the web could be wide, including Secret Service agents, flight crew members, and White House staffers, as well as outside advisors like Chris Christie, who helped prepare the president for his debate. Contact tracers are now reviewing a series of recent events. That multi-million-dollar fundraiser the president hosted at his New Jersey golf club yesterday, and Wednesday's campaign rally in Minnesota. The president last night suggesting service members and law enforcement officials may have spread the virus.
It's very, very hard when you are with people from the military or for law enforcement and they come over to you and they want to hug you and they want to kiss you because we really have done a good job for them. And you get close and things happen.
As for that Rose Garden ceremony for Judge Amy Coney Barrett last Saturday, at least 2 guests have now tested positive. Utah Senator Mike Lee today announcing he's infected. 24 hours earlier seen huddling with Republicans Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham. And Reverend John Jenkins, the president of the University of Notre Dame, where Barrett is a law professor. Jenkins this week apologizing to the university for not wearing a mask.
Peter, do we know how many people in the president's orbit are being tested?
Yeah, Lester, we don't have a specific number, but the list of those close contacts who have tested negative is growing tonight. Still, testing negative does not mean you're out of the woods. This virus can take up to 14 days to be detected in your system. That means those who tested negative will likely need to be tested again over the course of 14 days to make sure they're in the clear. Lester?
All right, Peter, thanks. This is the first time in decades that an American president has had to deal with a serious illness while in office. NBC's Andrea Mitchell reports on President Trump's health and how his predecessors dealt with their health challenges.
Despite reporting only mild symptoms, at 74, President Trump is in a high-risk group for COVID complications. And weighing 244 pounds adds to that.
He has metabolic syndrome, which is not diabetes, but a pre-diabetic kind of situation. And so, he has, from a health standpoint, at increased risk.
The president's true medical history is somewhat opaque. An unscheduled visit to Walter Reed last fall causing concern, though the White House called it routine. In June, releasing only a brief summary of his annual physical, declaring him healthy. And when he became a candidate, a doctor extolling his extraordinary health, later claiming Trump dictated it himself. The COVID diagnosis is the first time since Ronald Reagan a president has been known to confront such a serious condition while in office.
History tells you to treat medical reports from the White House as, at best, incomplete. And sometimes outright, there are elements of it that can be manufactured to produce a certain political effect.
After Ronald Reagan was shot in 1981, the White House released a photo showing him standing with Nancy Reagan, cropping out a nurse holding a machine connected to a chest tube, and never revealing how close he came to dying. 100 years ago, Woodrow Wilson suffered from the flu and was then partially paralyzed by a stroke, his wife shielding that from the public, essentially serving as president until the end of his term. FDR, stricken by polio, famously tried to hide his wheelchair from view. Even JFK, the picture of vitality, suffered from chronic back pain and secretly from Addison's disease. Why does it matter? Because the president has so much power, especially over national security, the public needs to know whether he or she is up to it. Lester?
Andrea Mitchell tonight, thank you. As the White House dealt with this crisis, Joe Biden campaigned in Michigan today, calling the president's illness a bracing reminder of the seriousness of the pandemic. Garrett Haake tonight on a presidential contest reshaped once again.
Tonight, Joe Biden back on the campaign trail in battleground Michigan after a negative COVID test this morning.
We need to take the science of fighting this disease seriously if we're going to save lives.
Meanwhile, President Trump's campaign announcing today that all previously scheduled campaign events would be moved to virtual events or are being temporarily postponed. The president's diagnosis may increase the spotlight on Vice President Mike Pence, whose campaign events will continue and who is set to debate Senator Kamala Harris next week. She's on the trail in Las Vegas today. There have been stark differences in the campaign styles of President Trump and Biden. While Trump has held large rallies with thousands of mostly maskless supporters, Biden has kept his campaign stops small and largely online. The Biden campaign announced Thursday it would expand its Get Out the Vote effort. Volunteer Jenna Perry says the campaign will continue to prioritize safety.
Are you confident that Joe Biden can win the White House doing the kind of non-traditional pandemic-style campaigning that we've seen up till now and that we're likely to see until November?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it has to be enough. That's all we can do right now is to be safe. We're not going to put people or voters at risk to get across his message in person.
A Trump supporter in Ohio today says the president and his campaign will be just fine.
He's a healthy man. I mean, and he, him and his wife, I think he'll pull through it, and I don't think it's going to affect the campaign.
Tonight, the Biden campaign says they're pulling all of their negative ads off the air. In-person and online campaign events will continue this weekend as scheduled. Lester?
All right, Garrett, thanks very much. Let's bring in our political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Chuck, the election 32 days away. What could this mean?
Well, look, short term, it is an operational blow to the Trump campaign. Why do I say that? Look, President Trump is the get out the vote machine for the Trump campaign. Those rallies are important organizational tools for the campaign. It's, that's how they recruit volunteers. They get their get out the vote drives that way. So look, it's a huge part of their logistics and their field program. So not having that, even for a minimum of 7 to 10 days, look, we can all do the math. We're 32 days away. Suddenly they only have 22 days from that. So that's the biggest short-term impact, if you will. But look, the longer term is this. This is now, the president has tried to make the reality of the virus put in the rearview mirror, make it on a side story. We're turning the corner. And what we have seen here is the reality of this virus has smashed head on with the reality that the president was trying to create. And now this virus is probably front and center for the rest of the campaign. And we've seen politically that hasn't been good for the president in the past when the virus is front and center.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.